Hello, everybody, and welcome to Segue Sunday number 14. You saw that too? Yes. Though the Scooby-Doo gang said it a lot more than probably anybody else out there, you've probably heard that same thing in some form on these different ghost adventure shows in order to gain validation. Now, in everyday life, most people will say, "You saw that too?" And then everybody just casts it away and forgets that if someone else saw it, it's not all in your head, which means it's out there somewhere. So today we discuss the odd event when people see the same phenomenon and then ignore it. This is more meant to be humor and discussion with the viewers, if there are any of you out there, than anything else. But there will also be serious discussion about why people seem to do this and what it means for those you love when you don't pay attention, especially your children. But once again, I want to thank Montana Ranch Emu for being our first real sponsor, and to remind everybody that it is the most healing and moisturizing thing you can put on your skin, the richest source of all essential fatty acids, including the non-essential forms, which we're now finding are actually essential and actually very, very beneficial with helping with everything from rheumatoid to osteoarthritis to plumping up the synovial tissue beneath the skin and making your skin appear less aged, wrinkled, and damaged. You can actually put it on and watch the inflammation and the damage decrease in front of your eyes. They even have an under-eye nourishing cream that works in less than 15 minutes to reduce inflammation, even from allergies under your eyes. And if you use the code SG206, you get 10% off your initial order, which can help ameliorate some of the cost of getting it sent to your home. Remember, that's SG206. And for some stupid reason, I forgot to put it in the low bar. I'll put it on later if you guys are interested. Thank you very much. And hello to everybody. Hello to Joel, who this is a lot of our shows, and we've missed him with every shot so far, Peg, and Sonia and Zephora. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
And hello to our viewer, Diana.
Diana.
D is on?
No, Diana. Diana Daniels Orcutt.
Oh, hello, Diana.
You know what, Sephora? I'm going to make you the mod so you can watch in there. That because we don't have an official one since Lori left. And
okay.
Zephora is now a moderator for your channel.
Ooh, I have a title. Fancy.
So, okay. Now, the basis of this was because Zephora said, "Well, what about when people see things and and people don't respond?" Yes, this happens a lot. Now, for Joel and myself, did you see that? Yeah, long discussions ensued, right, Joel? I mean, that actually literally was one of the first major conversations we ever had.
Yeah, I think, yeah, the chair getting ready to leave. Freaking glasses. Yeah, thank you for the warning. It's always my favorite.
Well, it's not like I'm going to warn people before they come through the door. It's like, if there's ghosts in here, it might freak you out. If you can, that doesn't usually happen. And my sister spent years convincing herself she never saw anything when we were in England, when she was in the living room, right? I mean, we're talking denial on an epic scale beyond the one in Egypt. So my sister was terrible. It's like, oh, it could have all been a dream. Yes, but it wasn't. Because
it's happening right now and you're here and you know.
This is happening live. This is not Memorex. This is funnier in the 80s, by the way. So that was when I came up with that joke. I think I threw that one at my sister in front of Joel, and Joel just started snickering. One of the few times he actually got to see my sister, the magic munchkin. She's like all of 4 feet.
Yeah. Oh man.
So
yeah, it's so much fun.
So that was like our first major conversation when we were talking about what we saw, and we didn't ignore it for the simple fact that there's okay. Well, I shouldn't say simple fact. If you listen to the cultural zeitgeist, and this is outside of our circles, okay, what do they tell people when they see stuff generally nowadays?
Come again.
what do they tell people nowadays? So you saw something and you say, oh, I just saw, and you fill in the blank, and then it's something attached to the idea of a ghost. And what do they tell them?
It's your imagination.
It's all in your head.
Or if
It's the air conditioning system. It's
or if they can't
faulty
ignore
wiring.
they can't ignore that it's a ghost, and then they say what? They say, just ignore it.
no.
It'll go away.
Oh.
Right?
Nah.
Just ignore it. It'll go away. That
Nah,
was
most people tell me, when you leave, I leave.
This reminds me of a sketch of Key and Peele sketch I saw last night, and it was the roommate meeting. Have you seen that one?
Nope.
Where they're like, who's been like leaving the refrigerator door open, and who's been pulling my bed sheets off and like hanging them from the ceiling fan? Was it you, Chad? Was it you? Was it you? No, it wasn't me. Was it you? And then it turns out they have this Asian roommate who's like a Japanese ghost, and like the Japanese
I have
ghost.
seen that one.
And then he like picks up the bottle and like throws it across the room and like, who did that? Who threw that bottle? It wasn't you. It was totally something you would do. And they're arguing, and then finally they're like acknowledging the ghost in the room as one of the roommates.
So
it's hilarious.
This actually talks about how denialistic a great many normal folk can be, because if you can't really explain it, just ignore it. And it reminds me of one of Liam Neeson's first films, High Spirits. Do you remember that, Joel?
Yeah, I remember that one.
Where they had a haunted castle where the haunting wasn't happening. Peter O'Toole didn't want to lose his castle. So he said, well, let's fake this up and make it look like it's haunted. And that riles up the ghosts, and then they start actually haunting the place. And so now they're like trying to ignore how bad it is, including this one guy. He's gone fishing, and he brings back the fish, and the fish is singing some Irish song. I can't remember what it was. It's singing, and they're trying to ignore just how freaky it is. And the guy says, "Don't you just love fighting?" Cuts off the head, right? It's still singing. It doesn't, it cuts it off with a cleaver, and it keeps singing. Ah, da, 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 da. It's like,
oh my gosh!
And they're in full denial mode, and for the audience, we're just laughing our heads off because it's so ridiculous. Why would you ignore it? It's so in your face, right to the point where the whiting fish head is still blithely singing along with Mitch. So
oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to watch that one again. It's been so long.
Really funny. It was actually understatedly funny because people were expecting something a little more in your face in the 80s, because it's a Steve Guttenberg film. They thought it was going to be driven by his hilarity rather than he's the straight man, which was really odd for the 80s.
Very odd, but it's good. I enjoyed it.
And so any other examples y'all can think of?
I had a thought and I lost it, so I will start my post-it note system of writing stuff down.
Well, you remember, Sean, we helped that one lady who was having issues, and everybody was telling her that she needed to be on meds and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, it's interesting because even if a person does have or has had history of psychological issue, it doesn't mean that they're not sensitive to what the things that are going on, and people shouldn't write them off. And then when her children started to report things around, they even discounted the children accounts for things, and that's just, I mean.
And we had her walk through the house, and I verified everything because I could see all the stuff she was talking about, and she's like, "Oh, good, I'm not crazy." It's like, well, I don't know how to make that. I can't make that assessment for you, but I can.
Could also be crazy in addition, but these things are here.
yeah, exactly.
Like you'll say, you don't have to be crazy, but it helps.
Yeah, and when you hear other cultures, some cultures that have shamanistic backgrounds and stuff, or they will say like these people aren't integrating the issue that they're having is they aren't integrating their gifts into this plane of reality. So yeah, it might be in their head, but what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, even if it's an abnormality in their brain alchemy, um, they're not. We don't teach as a Western culture. We don't teach people how to integrate that kind of things into a daily life, so we can lead a normal life for those people. And that's kind of sad because we really need to figure out what's the symptom and what's actually happening. And there's nobody out there to help these people with that.
So Sonia's been really quiet, so I'm going to wait for a little example from her, where we don't talk over her.
I would say my mum's quite good at doing that, like ignoring the thing. But I think it's more to do with people willingly not accepting it, because obviously it's hard to, especially when it's shunned on, especially around Lancaster, sort of thing. It's not, even though it's probably one of our biggest incomes, they kind of ignore that sort of shit.
Now, for those of you who don't know or haven't been with the channel long, Lancaster, England, was the dry run for the American witch trials in Salem. I mean, they literally created the book from which they drew pages for the torture, destruction that happened here in the U.S. because, there's no such thing as original stupid. Everybody learns it from someplace. And there was lots of people dying. I'm not making light of it, especially in Lancaster. And the reason I don't make light of it is because I've actually gone on a Google Maps trip through Sonia's town, and there's some really nasty stuff that's happened there, and it's left all over the environment. I'm very grateful that I wasn't there in the flesh, because the images are bad enough, the things that I've seen, and I don't even want to get near that castle where the killings actually occurred of the witches, because it was just horrifying.
Technically, the newer part's better than the older part.
Well, that's like saying murder. That's like saying that what is it? Manslaughter is not quite so bad as murder, but it's all in the same category. You're telling me that the nuance is it's slightly not so horrible, but Sean, you're still going to see dismembered body parts and stuff.
Not in the newer part. No, not in the newer part. There's nothing actually happened in the newer part like that, so it isn't too bad.
I'm grateful, but I'm still not going.
The older cells underground are the worst part.
So can I just point out that she made that clarification? It's not as bad. The new part is not as bad as the whole part.
Well, like I said,
the whole idea is like, okay, well, tear gas is not as bad as pepper spray. Like, oh yes, definitely. I'll just use my Visine.
I get.
It was an active prison till about 2 years ago, so.
I get what you're saying. I mean, I totally get what you're saying, and I understand the difference. But to most of our listeners, they're probably they probably don't get that. So yeah, you might see. I guess what she's saying is you might see some friendly ghosts outside of the area because it's so active. But when you get deeper, closer to the prison and underground, that's when you get to see the real anal puckering things that you didn't want to be around.
No. It's
Jacob happening here.
It's the exact opposite of rectal puckering. It's rectal explosions. Okay,
well, the older cells are that bad. You have to wear a hard helmet. You have to wear a hard hat to get into the old cells, and you have to crouch down.
Oh Lord, you would never get me near it. Oh, sorry. I've seen the pictures of the outside and wandered around it.
Say, it isn't too bad for me with only being just over 5 foot, so I don't have to crouch as much. But I feel sorry for anybody taller than me.
Okay,
can I get? Hell no! I would never do that for 1,000, Alex.
Go into an underground cramped space with a ghost.
No, it's not. It's not a ghost. It's a legion of them. Okay, I've
Well,
seen the
That's a
pictures.
hard pass.
Scary ghosts.
I've seen the pictures of the going down the steps and everything, right? And I'm sitting here on the other side of my computer, just my head is splitting because of how much angry pressure is coming back up the stairs. And it's like I don't want to go. I don't want to go, right? And how did they get Sonia down there? They say, "Oh, it'll be all right, Sonia. It's all in your head." Remember, Sonia?
And then when I pass out, I have a nosebleed, end up in the back of an ambulance, they still say it's in my head. I imagine the voice and everything.
Oh my god.
Of course I did. Yes.
It was in my head.
Yes.
Now it's coming out of my head.
You had some tainted rye. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so in the chat we have Jamie Tidnam says, "Joel, my brother, what's up?"
Jamie. He's my British brother from another mother.
Diana.
So Diane asked, but she's made an excellent point. Don't people often do that? Well, weird things are happening, but it can't be paranormal. It isn't as bad as Hollywood. Yeah, that's the thing. Hollywood has created this unrealistic idea of the paranormal, and one only has to look at Amityville 3D in order to actually know just how very far down the rabbit hole it goes. Coral, have I done telepathy before? Telepathy and telepathy with Joel, usually only in emergencies or while we're working a site together, like when I think they call it bilocate, but we call it projecting to a spot, and then we it's a wordless communication. And Joel and I sometimes even do it while he's asleep and I'm awake doing work. It's hard to explain. It's almost like we share thoughts. And I try not to speak for Joel because I feel like it's insulting to him. But at the same time, Joel would be like, "Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say." So and I try not to talk for Joel.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
See? I'm sorry. It's funny though, because it's one of those things that people then ask, "How do you do it?" I don't know.
It just happens.
It's a thing, and we haven't figured out how it occurs. We don't know how to turn it on, turn it off.
I have another one of. Go ahead, Savara.
I was just gonna say, it seems like, in my life, there's just certain people that I easily connect with, and like we're on the same wavelength. Whereas with other people, not quite so much. So you guys are just sort of on the same wavelength.
Yeah, and that was what we were discussing before you got onto the chat with us, because I know people ask, like, how did you do it? It's like, what caused it? I don't know. He doesn't. Well, sorry, Joel. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but
I don't particularly know exactly what caused it, but I know when we did that healing session together, it became more pronounced. But it always seemed to be a knack, like a talent that I had to be able to link with people. So like in I have a lot of empathic abilities. So I'm assuming it has something to do with that.
And then just finding somebody who's gifted along the same lines, it turns into full, telepathy, communication. Well, I like to joke about this. The first time that it happened was Joel was supposed to come over to my house, and he didn't come over to the house. And I think I was 16. It was one of the last things he was going to do before he went into the military. And I'm falling asleep, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, Joel. You're not going to come over. Fine, whatever. I'm going to sleep." And Joel was falling asleep at the same time, and he's like, "Oh, Sean's falling asleep." And so what happens next, Joel?
Get a call and I'm coming over.
I have another story of like when somebody said to me, when it's all in your head.
And once again, to quote the greats, why should it that it's all happening in your head means that it's not real? Dumbledore. I sound smart. But it's the truth. I robbed from the best, by the way. Yoda's my favorite.
I was about 8, and let's just say as a kid, I didn't stay still while I was asleep. I could go to sleep at the top of my bed and wake up at the bottom of my bed. So I was a veggie, veggie.
Veggie.
We're a veggie.
Oh my gosh.
That was a hell of a Freudian slip. I was a veg.
I just
Carry
got
on.
back from work, so it was a very, very fidget. I was a fidgeter when I was asleep, and I'd happened to hang half off the bed, half on the bed. So like my bottom half was in the bed, but my other half, my top half was like dangling. And I remember somebody coming into my room, picking me up. Hands were like they'd stuck them in the freezer or they were made out of icicles. And put me into bed, pulled the quilt over, and I could actually feel like the slightest longish fingernails, you know, like when it sort of protrudes over the fingers, you could feel it kind of digging in when they moved me. And then when she kissed me, it was ice cold. So I waited for a couple of minutes because I was waiting, then door shut. I was like, right. So I went downstairs and I went, Mum, why did you not say anything to me? She goes, what do you mean? You put me back into bed, didn't you? She was like, no. I was like, are you sure? She was like, oh, it must be in your head or you must have been dreaming. I was like, I was awake. I was about to move myself before I fell out of bed. She was like, ah, it's fine. You were probably dreaming it. And even my dad touched where, like, my arms and the top of my head where she kissed. It was ice. My skin was ice cold. Like, literally, like I'd been led against, like, people had put ice cubes on where she touched.
Okay, so in the chat room, in the chat room, I wanted to address this because it's actually two parts of the same thing. Coral asks, do you think we could give you some tips for an out-of-body experience? And the last time I had a few out-of-body experiences, I was blind and was heavy. And then Jamie says, do you guys believe in the further? Okay, the further is a term for the astral plane as you travel out to where it connects with the metaplanes. And that's what we call it. It's the metaplanes because there's a lot out there. It's not, it doesn't look like it does in the movies. The astral plane is very dark, especially where there's no living things. And that's probably the reason why Coral said she was blind. She says, I was blind and heavy. When you're learning to move around, it is very difficult because you want to take your meat with you, so you feel heavy until you realize that your meat doesn't have to come along for the ride. And then you realize you're extremely light, and moving around after you get experience with it is very, very simple. And traveling around the astral is pretty merry sunshine by comparison to when you get into the metaplanes, because then you start seeing things that is like right out of an LSD trip. You just don't even, you think either I got one hell of an imagination or there's stuff out here which is straight from a fever dream. And both of those are true.
He also asked about the cathedral. Jamie did.
Church in the United Kingdom, Rackheath. Sonia, do you know about something called Rackheath?
Where is it exactly? I'm trying to think. There's a lot of cathedrals.
Well, it says, you guys ever heard of a church in the United Kingdom, Rackheath? No idea.
I haven't, but you know, someday, Jamie, I'll be out there visiting you and Sonia in the near future. Hopefully, 2020, I'll be coming to Europe.
It sounds familiar.
Oh, I can definitely say I've never heard of it, and I've never even been near it. It's near Norwich, way out east of Cambridge.
Oh, that's probably why I've heard of it, but I haven't thinking because, like I say, that's nowhere near me.
There it is. He says in Norwich, Norfolk. He just replied.
So no, I've never even been on that side of England before. I begin to think that my mother made sure to drag us past every ghost spot imaginable. I don't think she did it on purpose. I just think I think she did it on purpose.
I'm more near Blackpool than that sort of end, sort of like northwest. So no, I've heard of it, but I'm not sure. Like I say, just got back from work, so my brain isn't really working.
So back to the original conversation of the. Did you see this? Now, people been they tell them to ignore, to not pay attention to, and that it's all in your head. And we've already had the epiphany that Dumbledore said, you know, if it's happening in your head, doesn't mean it isn't happening, especially if someone else is seeing it. Now, in most of these occasions where people see things, what's usually happening? What are they usually doing when they notice these things? What we're talking about, completely mundane folk, not you or I or Sonia or any of the people on our team. What are they doing? What's happening?
You know, I don't know, because most of the time people are with me and I'm the one that's like, oh, did you feel that? I have never had a person who was not sensitive point something out to me before I was aware of what was going on in the general area. I usually just let it ride, and then I'll let them say something to me about it.
Right, but I mean, I'm talking about like if you've watched these movies or these shows where they actually show people
like
doing them.
They're like watching a movie on TV where they're falling asleep. It's something where they've got their attention fixed on something and they're not paying attention to the rest of the room.
And they're not looking directly at it for sure.
Yeah.
Or they're cleaning, or they're doing something that puts them into a fugue state, like because you don't have to have all of your brain functioning while you're polishing something or doing dishes.
Yeah, it's when people are just kind of zoning out.
Checking on the babe. That's always my favorite. The baby's crying. Let's go see what's going on.
Oh my God. Baby monitors.
They're just casually listening in on the baby, and then they hear stuff. So it's their state of mind that gets them into an open state that we normally maintain. Except of course, like Joel and I, we'd be like, "Yep, we got to shut this off. Video games, off we go." That's how we learned how to shut it down, focusing on something so that everything else goes away. And but for most people, when they're doing something and they become receptive, then that's when they see the things. Like, you saw that? Yeah. And it's kind of funny because at times in many of these stories that you watch, if you see Paranormal Lockdown, if Nick and I've forgotten her name are together, they'll notice the thing together if they're both Katrina. Yeah, they're both in an open state. But Nick, he gets there a little faster than she does, even though she's sensitive and he's not. I've noticed that that's the occasion where because she gets into a focused state when she's on the prowl that he doesn't maintain. So it looked like Sonia was going to say something.
No.
No? Okay.
There was something in the chat here about the church. Jamie says, I've been there before and it was freaky. And I was there with a group of friends. We noticed the church door is open, bearing in mind it's late at night. And what we noticed was fresh milk, very cold. We looked around and noticed it became warm, very warm. And then a Bible from the ceiling fell on us and it freaked me and my friends out and we ran out.
That is kind of creepy.
Sounds haunted.
Yeah. Bible falling from the skies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. I'm sorry. I have to lighten the mood. I know it's terrible, but if you let the creeps climb into your spine, it's hard to get them back out again. So Ghostbusters for the win.
I would imagine. I imagine, Jamie, you was not the slowest one out of there.
This is from experience because Joel is like trying to catch bottled lightning when he's off. Because if it wasn't on foot, it was on his skateboard, and it's like, no, I don't have to outrace it. I just have to outrace you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joel would be just ahead of you.
I know. If I know Jamie, he probably was fast off the line. He's that slender, quick fellow. So, yeah, sure, he had no problem beating everybody out.
And for my next impression, Jesse Owens.
That kind of reminds me of what David Attenborough said on one of the BBC interviews. He was saying, and they're like, "Oh, it's so dangerous." He goes, "Yeah, I only have to run faster than the Southman." Because obviously the heavier, it's like, oh.
He says he ran out of there like someone vetted on me to win the Grand National Horse. Vetted, so he corrected it.
That reminds me of a line from a movie. It's like, this guy asked, "Why do you think you should be the jockey for my horse?" Why? Because one shot of this and your horse will win the Indianapolis 500.
Oh man. So
I'm sorry. I am in such a merry mood today because I know this. Most of this stuff just keeps reminding me of
That's a
crazy,
good thing.
silly stuff that Joel and I went through.
Silly's good.
It's like with
I like
the banshee. It's like Joel put it in reverse. Joel put it in reverse. Joel put it. Joel, don't give me that crap because it's a clutch, man.
Yeah. There's so many of our experiences are like that, where it's just like one of us would be like, "Did you see that?" And then it'll be like, "Did I see what? Did you see that?" And then the other would describe what the other one just saw, and it'd be like, "Yes." Okay, so we're gonna slowly walk out of here.
My wife and I will, one of us will be like, "Oh, did you just see someone run through the living room?" Yeah. Okay. So anyway, and we just go back to our conversation. Once there was, it was actually a friend of hers who had passed away, but it looked like a stereotypical cartoon of a ghost fly in between us, like a Halloween decoration. And I'm like, "Did you just see something that looked like a cartoon of a ghost fly through?" She's like, "Yeah." Oh, well, anyway, so we just go back to our conversation.
That reminds me of this when Amy Allen was on an investigation, and apparently, and I will not cry for these guys. Apparently, there was like a mass murdering of KKK members on this land. And I have no idea how that was enacted or what occurred or why that would occur. But
someone got pissed off and decided to do something about it.
Somebody just took them to the woodshed, and they never came back. And they were all over this land, right? And I was seeing through her eyes, and I thought, oh my God, this is insane. Look at all these, and they look like cutouts, bad cutouts drawn by a child on white paper with very bad animation, and they're all hung by their little points like ghoulish little gnomes from the trees all around. And she saw that, and I told my wife before she even had a chance to say it, I said, holy crap, there's all these clan members of the year hanging like Christmas ornaments from the trees around this place. And then she goes and describes that to her husband, who's got the little camera on her. And my wife she gets a sudden shudder, and she pulls the cover. She's got a quilt on her as she's sitting in the chair, pulls it up to her chin. It's like, that is really creepy. I said, no, what I saw is creepy. You hearing about it is just a shudder. Okay. Cause I got to see this. This is some gnarly stuff. And
that is really bizarre.
It was, and she never even got an answer as to why so many of them died and what was going on. There was no history of it, no record of it, and there was worse on the land. There was also Native Americans on the far side, and it was almost like the two sets of ghosts were at war with each other, and the house in the middle was in the middle of this war zone on the north edge of this activity. And stuff would just spill over. And so I don't remember how she resolved it, but I do remember that the people didn't want it corrected. Not fully. They said that they didn't think it was their place to do anything, really. And I thought, why?
That's like that's like the ghost investigators who don't believe you should actually send the ghost to the other side, because it's like opening someone's door and setting their pet free. It's like, excuse me, these are human souls, not cats and dogs. What the hell? No one owns them.
Oh, we just keep them dangling in the trees. It's fine. They're just ornaments. They're just hanging
like
around.
Pets.
Yeah, like pets. They're my property now.
It's I own the land and everything on it. It's
including the ghosts.
Well, if the ghosts come to you in the night and something untoward happens, it can take quite a while before you get the proper assistance.
Yeah.
And it's not like these things can't hurt you. I wanted to point something out also. I mean, this is aside from the original topic. Joel and I'd said this to people, but I want to say this in the show so people can hear this and get the feedback from all four of the experts that are on the show. Okay. If you've come to my channel, I'm glad you're here. because I'm not one of these people, and nor are the people on my team, and I have an extensive team, who use their gifts like Lady Snake. Okay. And you'd be surprised how common these people are that want to use their abilities for their own selfish ends are. They will get you to believe all kinds of crazy stuff, including that they're righteous, they're doing things for the good, so that you will accept consequences that they don't want to face for them. Because if you do good, good things come back to you. If you do bad things, well, you know they're going to come back, but with interest. And so they don't, when that bill comes due, I'm stealing from Marvel again. So when that bill comes due, they don't want to pay it. And they're going to find someone else to cash out for them. And that's usually other folks that are innocent and unwitting. So I'm glad you're here, because we're not one of those people that are going to drag you down into the seventh pit of Pazuzu and get you to do something for us so that you can pay the price that we don't want to. We don't do anything untoward, evil, selfish, none of that stuff, because we know what the consequences are, as well as we haven't got it in us to be Sith Lords, if you will. It simply just isn't a part of our makeup of the way that we work. The idea of, I was challenged to try it one time. I tried. Oh my gosh, I tried to work up every ounce of anger, and I get to the point where I'm about to enact something on someone, and I just deflate, because all of my good feelings just well up, and I forgive them automatically. I don't know what it is that is in another person that can push past that inner light that will push the darkness at someone, or make someone else hurt just because they want revenge. It's like, oh yeah, come to me and I can get you revenge, or I can make a person love you, or whatever. That's, if they can do that, you're going to be paying a price that is one you simply can't fathom right now, and one that will affect you probably to the end of your days. So please be careful of those kinds of folks. Everybody's thoughts now?
I agree.
Yeah, I don't do anything to harm anybody. It's just not worth it. I've seen
Okay.
it happen.
Joel, expound. I'm not trying to talk for you.
I've seen things that happen to people who try to, I guess you could say, hex people and things like that. You know, it's it's never a good thing. Bad things. The karma train. It's a mother, and when it comes and you're on that rail, that karmic rail, when it hits you, you will feel it. I mean, I could just, there's just certain people that I think of that had bad influences in my life, and I know they, yeah, just not good things that happen. It just kind of faded away rather quickly.
Zephora?
I just try to do everything I do with empathy, because I don't usually work with the bad stuff. I work with, just like people who've passed on, and they're just as much people after they die as they were before they died. And, I try to treat them as such. And I really get annoyed with people who kind of see them as things or not people anymore. And I just try to do everything I do with empathy and compassion, and do what's best for them and not what's best for anyone here who's living, because and I'm saying that from the perspective of, I haven't actually been called in to clean out a house yet. So obviously, if I did that, I would have to keep the living person or people, like families, best interests in mind too. But I don't go at it with this view of like it's a thing that needs to be removed. Like, it's a person who has died, they're stuck, they need guidance, and I try to guide them along. So that's my perspective on it. I would never try to take advantage of anyone, living or dead, for my personal gain. I have no interest in that whatsoever.
Sonia? Uh-oh. What if she's on the loo? Oh, no, she unmuted.
No, sorry. Paul was getting extremely loud there for a second, and there's 3 doors between us, and I can still hear him and my headphones are on my head. Yeah, like I said, I've seen. Well, there's been dubs. I've seen him trying to fix stuff where people have cocked up because they've done selfish things and so forth, and it's not a good thing. Like I say, I try and help in ways of, like I say, I've done a couple of cleansings and stuff, but have their sort of like their consideration into I can't even speak today. Great, it feels like I've got somebody else's teeth in my mouth.
That's another horror movie altogether.
Hey, concomitant me, I'm a vegetable now.
I'm a veg. So now this comes back to one of the tenets of what in order to do the things that I do and to become what I became, I had to accept the very primal law of love is the law. Love is the law. Love under will. That is the most important guiding principle in everything I do. Because if someone had done that one, and somebody did, my grandfather, but not as extensively as I do, I go out there, but had done that for me when I was in danger, I probably wouldn't have developed like I am now, and wouldn't have become. I would have been more like Zephora, as opposed to being very much more like Goku. I mean, just recently, Diane Swiger and I helped someone, and the thing that we dealt with was not a ghost. It was something from beyond that wasn't a demon. We want to call it, we're naming it as a kobold with a higher armor class, because Dungeons and Dragons references are always cool. and when we got rid of it, it was not really overly difficult, but the darn thing was feeding. And it was ugly. It was feeding on people and causing issues and making things dangerous. And when you're dealing with children involved, it always sets off my inner panic meter. And so I'd be like, yeah, do you need help? Should we take care of it? I mean, I get this creeping sensation up my back, like I don't want anyone to end up dealing with what I dealt with, even in its mildest form, because it's traumatizing. It's traumatizing in a way that few things in this world can be traumatizing, because for the most part, you can't stop it. You can't lay a finger on it. And it's not everybody's like Aisha, where she can pull out a broom, and even though she can't see it because of her gifts, she can beat it in the head, which is really funny because she can. Aisha's a badass. But so.
Yeah, when monsters under the bed become real, kids need support with that. They need help with that. It's not a good idea to leave them alone with that, because it's very traumatic.
And it goes after whoever's that got the lowest amount of energy or the least ability to defend themselves. And they can make medical conditions worse. It can make mental conditions worse. It can make the whole house feel horrible. It can affect families, marriage, everybody's emotional state.
Causes fighting. I mean, I've been there. I've had that stuff in my house before, and it's caused all kinds of problems, and just horrible health problems and fighting and conflict and all kinds of things, but it was because someone I knew was engaging in these sorts of activities with a very selfish mindset and a very negative mindset, and he just attracted all these things to him like a magnet, and they just went everywhere with him, and they're hard to get rid of. It took probably at least a month just to clear the apartment, so it's like you have to have the right mindset when you're working with this stuff, otherwise it can get bad.
And that goes back to the previous conversation of there are lots of people out there. Joel and you got to set the Wayback Machine to the 90s. There's no internet yet, so there's no way to go and meet other people. And when you do, quite often they're going to be not honest about their whatever it is that they're aiming for, right, Joel?
Yeah.
But after a few of them, you begin to realize exactly what you're dealing with as soon as they start to yarble at you. And so some of the people who tried to latch onto the channel early, way back when we first started it, were that same kind of thing. And Joel are like, yeah, you remind you of, yeah, okay. Remember those, Joel?
Yeah, I remember those. I'm kind of glad you hit on the thing about sometimes it can cause medical issues to become worse, because Jamie had a question about night terrors being related to paranormal events. I'm sure they can, if you already have a condition to have night terrors, I'm pretty sure it can make it worse and trigger some night terrors.
I've heard that's how some ghosts, if they can get you into a fugue state where you're more receptive, they can drive your night terrors up to on a scale of 1 to 10 to a 5 million. And
yeah, sure.
And Amy Allen talks about it on her show at length, because there some folk who are gifted, their gifts can sometimes go awry, and they get turned to full-fledged on somewhere between fully awake and fully asleep, and they can't really control it so much, and then bam, here come the night terrors, and they wake you up in a cold sweat.
Now, as a former sleep scientist, I need to say that before you, if you're getting a lot of sleep paralysis night, a lot of night terrors, a lot of, waking up in a cold sweat, that kind of thing, or even hallucinations as you're falling asleep, seeing and hearing things, it's important to rule out a sleep disorder before you go directly to it's a ghost, it's a demon, because it could just be a sleep disorder. So, sometimes it's a supernatural force influencing your dreams or whatever, and sometimes it really is just a sleep disorder. So I think that is important, in dealing with the supernatural. Is it a ghost? Is it a demon? Is it whatever? Rule out the hard, like, physical real world stuff first. And then if it's still happening, you may have something else on your hands. So, yeah.
One of the things that you can do while you're waiting for a proper diagnosis is also to have someone come in and ward your house in order to reduce the chances of stuff being able to meddle with you while you're sleeping.
Basically, or even just have someone come and check it. Just come take a tour of my house and see if you notice anything. If it's someone that you trust that's really sensitive to these things, they can tell you for sure. And if it's not, look into something like a sleep disorder, because those are possibilities too. Like, I was watching a TED Talk. There was a woman who thought that she had a demon in her house. She's getting these really horrible feelings, and she's trying everything. She's trying sage, burning sage, whatever. And the feelings were just getting worse and worse. And she went on a forum that was a paranormal investigator, but they were coming at it from the scientific, maybe not believing in ghosts, but investigating ghosts kind of thing. And they said, well, have you looked into a possible gas leak? And so she called the gas company, and they came and tested her house, and they're like, oh my God, you would have been dead tonight. There's so much gas in here. So, those things really should be looked at, because like in that case, that was potentially life-threatening. And if she had just been like, it's a demon, it's a demon, it's a demon, she never would have known, and she might not be here today. So, yeah.
Which is to say, we always advocate the spaghetti approach. Look at everything. Okay, throw everything at the wall. Find what sticks. Don't go, it's only one thing, because none of us here ever approaches everything as if it's always paranormal. Because in some occasions, we've actually had people say, oh, it's got to be paranormal. And then we go in with guns blazing. And it's like, this place is a ghost town. I mean, literally a ghost town. It's not there's ghosts here. It's a ghost town. There's nothing in here. And then you have to tell them that. It's like, no, you're crazy. It's like, okay.
Diana wanted to know, do any of you feel like some medicines that are prescribed make it easier for individuals to become manipulated, etc., or maybe even more sensitive? I would add.
Well, the only ones I've actually encountered did exactly the opposite. Made it so that you could you well when I went to my doctor and told him I was having an allergy attack, and he gave me a medicine that wasn't for allergies. It actually turned out was for panic attacks because apparently they also work on allergies somewhat. Ha ha. I really don't like my doctor.
That is weird.
This guy's a doofus. And every time I took the darn things, I was so trapped in my own meat. I couldn't actually project. Seeing auras was way difficult. And just sensing things. I would watch Ghost Adventures and it was if being able to sense ghosts and being able to have my normal faculties is being able to see in Technicolor and you can see everything and it's all vivid. My life got pushed down to a pinprick of gray and white. And that's one of the things I've discovered. Now I don't know. I've never encountered anything that made me more sensitive.
There is a medicine that could do it, and I don't remember the name of it. They were developing something that would simulate narcolepsy to help people with jet lag and help them sleep, but that also will induce dreaming while you're awake. So that kind of thing would probably increase experiences. Now, whether those were real or not, I couldn't say, but I would posit a guess that you would experience more strange things taking that medication.
More than likely.
I would speculate that some of your hypnotics might be able to do that. It really,
Yeah, and there's like ayahuasca and stuff, like people say that it or acid, but
I steer clear of all those things because of the simple fact that if I can't control it, I don't want to deal with it because I've already been on trips that are against my will that I really can't imagine being dragged along for. I mean, it's like being strapped into a 20-minute long roller coaster and there's no ejector switch to get off this. So just call it my
yeah, I've never
control
tried them
freakishness.
either. I'm just allergic to so many plants. I'd be afraid that something bad would happen if I took a new one. So I just don't do stuff like that. But
And
I
for
have
me, there's
heard
a lot
I
of
have heard
natural
tell.
things out there that just don't work at all, and so many medicines that all they do are give me side effects. So I tend to like I could pop hydrocodone like M&Ms and it won't do anything to me. It doesn't kill pain. No, I've never been addicted to any drugs. I think I was Joel. Does Dilaudid come in a pill?
yeah, it does.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was
So
distracted for a second. Yes.
So then that was what they gave me when I was on that motorcycle accident and my back was in spasm. It worked the first time they gave it to me, and they gave me 2 more pills, and they didn't work. So like I steer clear of medicine because if on the off chance that it's going to work, it may work once, and then that's it. So I steer clear because I am a wackadoo.
Yeah, Diana also wanted to know if we feel like there are some medicines that make it easier for individuals to be manipulated.
I would assume so because there's so many like I've seen what drugs do to some people when they take them. And I mean, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana, heroin, I've seen the effects of a lot of these things. But the one that is really the most frightening to me is watching someone pop a Xanax pill. And then all of a sudden their aura goes from all of a sudden their aura goes from vibrant and living to Return of the Living Dead. There's nothing there. And I saw it happen to someone that I cared about very much, and I'm like, that person I know isn't in there anymore. And then they say, well, I feel so much better on this. How? Okay, well, I'm not going to argue. If it's something that you need, that's fine. But that person went from being someone that was very vibrant and living to when they know they're supposed to smile, they paste a smile on their face that looks more like a death's head grin. It's a rictus grin than anything else. And
yeah, I was actually going to say benzodiazepines. But yeah, Xanax is a benzodiazepine.
Sonia, you going to say something?
Well, going on to the beginning, I know my dad won't take like liquid morphine because he has trouble turning everything off because he has to. He technically is meant to have it because of his back and the issues he has. What went down the wrong hole there? But he says he has trouble like switching like things off, especially if he's in somewhere where it's like high energy sort of thing. So he won't take like liquid morphine. So, and like he says, it makes him easily more because you know I feel like a toddler. I can't speak.
When you did that, it reminded me of Crocodile Dundee's friend in the second Crocodile Dundee movie. It's a Jahaba Jahada, which means the man who walks, or the crocodile that walks like a man.
Oh my god.
The craziest stuff just pops into my head, doesn't it? I mean, if I was to make a movie of this stuff, people go, you know, you're crazy. Yeah, you're right. That's why I do the job I do. It helps a lot.
You haven't heard me when I get like stressed and angry. I sound like Taz from the Tasmanian Devil, from Looney Tunes.
Blah, 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 blah,
Well, no, it's because I speak really fast. I take after my dad. I start talking like 100 miles per hour, and they're like, "What?"
Hey, Taz, the old devil, you got good eyes. I eat carrots. What do you eat? I eat rabbits.
But yeah, he feels like he'd be more easily more easily persuaded if he took liquid morphine. So he won't take it at all. Well.
So we got any last second questions from anybody out in the peanut gallery? I know that the kitty cat was licking the air when Joel spoke, so I'm gonna let Joel field the questions next because Billy D. Williams and all that.
Well, Jamie was saying, I hear voices and suffer with night terrors all the time and got everything wrote down on paper. I've always freaked out as never experienced it. I'm under the Mental Health Act and they tell me it's not real, but why do I hear it? There's a voice in his head that I suffer. He names himself Arthur. I've not heard from him since June 2018. Doesn't mean he's gone, but my night terrors are still around.
It sounds like you probably might want to have an expert take a walk through your house and see if maybe there's something that's afflicting you while you're seeing a specialist. The Mental Health Act thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to talk about the neurology, we can talk about the neurology of why people hear things that aren't there, but I'm not saying that it's not there. I don't know, because I haven't looked. There could be something there. You know, it's just one of the things you have to investigate it from all sides and see.
That's one of the things that we never assume that it's any one given thing.
Yeah, exactly.
We ask questions and let the answers shape the I guess the focus would probably be the best way to put it, because we're nothing if not we're look with Brent on his channel when he was putting videos up on Paranormal Portal, and he was putting up these. What do you see with these videos? Right? It's like I'm kind of a spoil sport because it's like if I don't see something, if I don't actually see that there's a ghost involved or whatever, I can tell you that it's a special effect. I know what to go looking for next, which is looking for the wires or the whatever. And so I'm probably one of the worst people that when you want to try and freak them out, you know, you take me into a haunted house, one of those fake haunted houses, right? And everybody else is just succumbing to the jump scares, and I'm walking around looking at everything. And they ask, so why aren't you jumping? It's like, because I put out a finger and I push him in the chest, like, because you're meat.
Yeah.
And I got an unfair advantage. Suffer.
I'm gonna send Jamie a link to our page, and I think maybe this should be a discussion that we can have further, just maybe not on the air. That way we can give it a little bit more attention because it sounds like it needs a little bit more attention. I've known
Yeah.
Jamie for years. We used to play PS3 games together, and so I think one of my kids are like the same age as him, so it's good. I really want to help him out and see if we can't figure out what's going on for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this
It's a
And
is
lot.
definitely an interesting case. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if something is taking a Hollywood term in order to get you to come along, it either knows what you're thinking, knows what's out in mass media, or it's just using a reference that you know, or it's something in your head. So there's too many possibilities. There's just no way for me to say, yeah, it's going to be X, Y, or Z. Because the proper term for what they call the further, as I said, is actually the metaplanes. And that's not even a term that I came up with. It's actually a loosely translated from Hindu into English. Or I should say Hindi into English, the term that they used. And the term metaplanes basically is what we adopted because of the fact that they threw it into the Shadowrun game, and it made the most sense. And the guys who made Shadowrun did so much homework. It was insane. It was stuff that we'd read about and things that we'd learned about, and all they did was coagulate it in one spot. It's like, here's a terminology we can use for most of this stuff. And the metaplanes are very serious business. But the further isn't really metaplanes. It's more astral at the fringes, beyond normal consciousness. And it's not exactly a safe place to go, especially if you don't have the ability to defend yourself. We don't astrally project because, I've said this on several of our shows, Joel and I would do it on accident. And Joel, currently, we're having a conversation about that. And then you go out there and things find you and you get banged on, and then you come back to your meat and you find bruises in places that a spring mattress is not going to give you.
Yeah.
So it's just not going to happen. So if you encounter this stuff and you come back and you're like, why do I have this headache? Oh, I must have slept in a bad position. Why do I have this bruise on my scapula? It shouldn't be there, etc. Or you have red welts coming up that look like pimples, but they don't ever get ahead because they're cysts that appeared under your skin and are now subsiding from something that you encountered. It's not uncommon. And so I know there are people out there that have this whole out of body experience, astral projection. There's nothing as wonderful. You've got to do it. It's fantastic. I don't know who these people are, but I think what they're doing to themselves is guided hallucinations, because almost everybody I know who's been to the astral describes it exactly the same way. And it's not one of those places where you go, oh yeah, you're perfectly safe. Everything's cool. Just go. No. The terminology fools run in where angels fear to tread is exactly made for this. Sorry, go ahead, Zephora.
Oh, and what's funny is, after you had described the astral on another show, I went in and asked my wife what she sees when she astral travels, and it was exactly the same, almost verbatim. It was great.
So when you hear people describe it as this otherworldly experience and there's rainbows and unicorns and I don't know where they're going, but it's not out there. It's probably somewhere inside their own head. And since I can't watch them doing it, I don't know what to say. Was it something about lol at the gray hair? What did I miss?
Oh, Jamie said, I've gone gray because of Joel. And Diana says Joe Rogan is big on that and DMT. None of that sounds like a good time to me at all.
So he's gone gray. He's gone gray because of you, Joel. And all of a sudden, in the back of my head is DC Cab. It's like I knew the train was on the other tracks all the time.
Oh my gosh!
So, every interaction with Tyrone is like the rudest thing. Never has no resemblance to Joel whatsoever in that movie at all. But he's the guy to watch through over 9/10 of the film because he just cracks everybody up.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's it's either because I'd say I'll get I've been good on this channel. I feel like my sensor works on this channel, but nowhere else.
Thank God.
I mean, there's been a couple of slips, but nothing like when I come out of a patient room and I had one of the unit secretaries and her trainee like gasp at something I said, and the other half and everybody else is laughing because they know that I'm just not. They're the charge nurse is like, tell me how you really feel. And then the CNA comes out and they're like, that lady is a effing B, except for, it's full on. And, and everybody's like, Joe's clinical skills proves correct. Your clinical assessment.
Correct diagnosis.
Yeah, your clinical assessment of the patient is 100% correct, Joel. Thank you. We will not go into that room.
So now somebody was saying something about different drugs. Joe Rogan recommending something. Now I have to throw this one. Yeah, I have to throw this one out there because this is kind of this is basic what I believe, and you could probably make a good argument that I'm incorrect. But if you have to have some exogenous way to do something to be able to get to this experience, to have an out-of-body experience, or to be able to see the astral, or be able to see auras or whatever, how reliable is it that you're going to be able to? I mean, you can't turn drugs on and off, and it becomes a crutch. So, I'm the fastest person on the racing track when I'm on my motorcycle. That sounds kind of weird. And it also doesn't really work out too well, too, because that motorcycle can be taken away. And if that's the only way you learn how to experience it, people like to say, oh, well, doesn't it make it easier so the further down that? No, it doesn't. It really doesn't make it easier. It is a crutch for a reason, because it is a crutch. It will not lend itself to, okay, now I've experienced this, I can keep doing it without it. And then there comes the other reality that people have asked, well, can you pull me out of my body? I will never effing do that. Never. Because when it happened to me, when it was done to me, it was pain on a scale that I don't even know how to. I mean, it creates a whole new scale. And you're so disoriented when you're pulled out. I could astrally project. I could control myself when out of body. But when this happened to me, I was left completely like a babe in the woods. I was bare. None of my abilities worked. I was very lucky that I was able to mount any kind of a defense against what it was that had done it to me. So when people ask, will you do this? No, because I don't know what it's going to do to you. And the pain that you're going to feel if I manage to accomplish it, even when you get back into your meat, is not going to go away for a long time. And the closest thing I have felt to this kind of pain was back when a friend of mine who used to work at Norm's, who wanted to give me a dinner while he was working there, said, here, don't just eat this, don't ask, right? I'm thinking, well, this smells good. And I had a bowl of clam chowder, and he didn't know that I was allergic to shellfish. And we were just lucky that 2 stalls over, there was a paramedic. And this is before Epiject pens exists, folks. So he gave me a shot of adrenaline, and let me tell you what too much adrenaline feels like. Everything hurts. Your head hurts. Your ears are super sensitive. Everything's ringing. Your blood pressure's up. Your eyes are dilated, and you walk around like you just had one of the worst jump scares of your life, and it just doesn't calm down. And that's the closest thing I could tell you. I mean, my hair on my head hurt, and that was the closest feeling to how bad this got. And that's just because of nerve attenuation, because the adrenaline causes all your nerves to become very raw. So you have to ask yourself, if you need these crutches should you really be getting there? And if you can get there, isn't the trip the long way there much more satisfying that you got yourself there on your own 2 feet? Anybody else got any thoughts?
I'm gonna chime in on this one. Not that I've ever done it this way before, but I have had a couple of friends. I had a friend who's a botanist who traveled all over. Actually, he's a botanist and what's the one that studies bugs?
Entomologist.
Thank you, entomologist. I stroked out. Entomologist. I stroked out there for a second. Sorry.
It's okay.
He traveled to South America. He got a chance to experience a substance induced. I guess you could say. Here I am stroking out again. He got a dream quest, astral quest with a shaman from like a tribe in Central America, and under those circumstances, I might recommend it, but just using street drugs without any research or anything like that, I would definitely not recommend it. And I know most people are like, well, if you're into shamanism, then this might be something that you would be interested in. So why would you not endorse it? But it's definitely because if it's not researched right, you could have fracturing of yourself and your spirit, and just a bad trip where you can have PTSD or some sort of spiritual or astral scarring from that, and no one wants that. So there are definitely ways to do it, but I would definitely not recommend just going out on your own and just arbitrarily like, well, Joe Rogan said it, or I hear people having these good things with DMT, these good experience. You don't know what your body's going to go through when you take it, so I would not recommend it.
Jamie wants to know if anyone has been in contact with a demon for real.
Yes.
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 And THX.
I was going to say, I know somebody, but it's hard to get him to talk. I'd probably get blood out of a stone better.
Yes, definitely Jamie have been in contact with a demon, and she was in contact with me. Oh, yeah. I can't chew properly on the left side still. And it's been, oh, God, 16. It's been over 30 years. Let's leave it at that, okay?
Yeah.
So
it was about that long, Jamie. So
yes.
The only reason why I know it is because I was there. And I chose not to buy the t-shirt. Because no.
There was a little poem that was going through my head as I was flying through the air after it hit me. It's goes something like this: the view from here is mighty fine. It sends shivers down my spine. After I hit the ground, and I did it poorly, even though I'm an expert at judo. That's how disoriented I was. It hurt my neck so bad. Yeah, she reached out and touched me. It was like a freaking AT&T commercial from the 80s. Or was that GTE? Reach out and touch someone. I don't remember that one.
I don't remember.
Is there more than one demon? Oh yeah. They've all got names too, man. They've all got individual names, and somebody stuck a lot of them in my head so that I'd know exactly what I was facing. The first time I came in contact with this one, for some reason, her name bubbled up in the back of my head. I didn't know I was being helped. And this is before Airmid decided to say, hey, Sean, I'm here for you. And so she puts these names like, yeah, this is the name of that one. It's like, really? That's a long name. So, and then a couple days later, it's like, oh, look, she's in the D&D Monstrous Compendium. So, yeah. it's quite staggering how these, and there's a lot of different ones out there. The one I'm very ticked off with the fact that they're very casual with the names of these things in these movies. Like I will say because the name's already out there. In The Exorcist, they gave you the name Pazuzu, which is the perverter of oaths. That was The Exorcist. In the latest movie about the Warrens, which is quasi-real with the nun, Valak. Valak! Are you joking? Why in the world would you give the real name to the world of the boogeyman? Okay, the eater of children. You absolute pendejos, right? Now, that's the only reason I will mention these is because the name's already out there.
I saw the opposite happen in Practical Magic. They were casting a spell and summoning Hecate, but they said it wrong. And I feel like they did that on purpose so as not to cast an actual spell every time people watch the movie.
Which is not a bad thing, but
not that she's bad, but
but they went and they did it on purpose to expose people like whoever it was that came up with this thought that this isn't going to have repercussions. I even told Brent, I said I will not name ones that the name hasn't already been out there.
Well, this takes us back to the beginning of the show where, it's nothing. It's all in your head. It's no big deal. It's just a fictional character.
Is there something worse than a demon? Well, it all depends on your perspective. There are ancient creatures out there that don't want to hurt us, but if you mess with them, they can squish you like a bug and make a demon look like Pretty Mary Sunshine. With the Ghostbusters, if you were to hold a demon next to Gozer, even though Gozer's not real, I'm just using it as an example, that would make it look much, much worse, right? But most of the ancient ones that are out there don't really see us as anything to worry about. Valak is not a nun. Valak is the actual name of the original demon that inspired the boogeyman. Okay? That's where the term comes from. Valak is the eater of children, the profaner of youth. Okay, please don't make me get any more specific. Okay, the fact that there's a whole book of these crazy bastards in the back of my head put there for my own protection scares me daily. So don't make me go into it too deeply. Okay, Jamie?
I have a message for you, Sean.
Yeah.
When you said, that's when Aramid said, hey, no, I've got your back. Mm-hmm. The goddess that I'm in communication with said, Dochavesha, which I just got translated means you will be family or familiar of the exalted.
Whoa.
So that's confirmation from a goddess. Yep, you are family. You are family of the exalted.
She wants me to call her mom, and I can't say that there isn't somebody out there there's nobody who's ever been more like a mother to me and been watching out for me.
Yep, call her mom. She's mom.
Very sweet, and I'm
it is
very
what
grateful.
It is. Yeah.
She's been super nice to me, and we've seen the effects on my mom when she did. It's like, Mom, I even tried to get my mom, tell me what's written on this book you just give me. Just read this. Just read it, right? Like, I don't know, Sean. It's a bloody book of stories. Like, Mom, read the cover. And Joel's like, it's like, dude, just let it go. Just let it go. Mom, read the cover. Like, and she's just getting exasperated with me. I don't know, Sean. Let me get my glasses. Like, you're wearing your glasses. Then bloody leave me alone.
It's bad when she takes her glasses off her eyes and put it on top of her head, and she's like, I can't see. Where's my glasses? You just moved them up to your...
Okay, so we're 20 minutes past normal because we've been having a great time answering questions. I love this. Hopefully, we'll eventually get this up to a 2-hour-long thing where we're interacting with the audience more. But this is what we literally wanted. States it's based on a true story, Jamie, does not mean it's 100% true. I've done so much research into what the Warrens have done that when they go off the rails for the movie, because it's more what we do from the outside looks very boring.
Yeah, it does.
It looks very boring. So you have to really jazz it up to make it interesting to people.
Wouldn't make a
on
good movie.
Not at all.
So based loosely, and then try to make it, more scary, and then create a whole universe behind it, so that they have a horror franchise to run on, is what
The
they're
magic
doing.
of Hollywood.
And and that reminds me of 1942, the Japanese guy on the U-boat goes, Hollywood. See, I love Hollywood too, but mostly because I like comedies and dramas and fantasy adventure and stuff that inspires people to be better people. Not look at all these different ways that these horrifying people got away with stuff. I don't like it where the bad guy wins at the end. I'm sorry, the bad guy usually ends up down by his own hands or something else. But oh yeah, oh my gosh, so the actual real experience is different to a based true story. Yes. We actually did a couple of videos on what the Warrens went through. We still have to, Joel and I have to sit down and finish the last one, which is on the Enfield haunting in England, which actually started 2 days after I left England in 1977. I felt like I escaped something. So glad I wasn't around for that, but that's one that we have to finish up. And the real story is so different from the BBC miniseries, the show in the Warren verse that they created on the Enfield haunting, which I think was the Conjuring 2, which had to do with Valak again, which had nothing to do with it. And I mean, because the real story is so boring. Because let me jump to the end of the Enfield haunting for you, the Poltergeist haunting. A Scandinavian psychic came to the house and asked, "Do you want this to stop?" They answered, yes. He said, "Everybody leave and go have an ice cream. Here's a 20 quid note. I'll talk to you later." And they come back and it stopped until the girl's mother died. Peggy's mother, is it Peggy? Died 20 something years later. Literally, that is the end of the story, the real end. Because he went in there and said, "Look, we'll leave you alone if you're quiet." Diane, no, it wasn't one of the biggest messes. The thing that came out of the your house wasn't one of the biggest messes. The portal, when we popped it open, that was one of the biggest messes. The biggest messes that we ever dealt with in the last 10 years was one of the girls who used to be on the show's father and stepmom had a house that had something similar to what was in your house, but on the magnitude of about 50 times.
Oh, back when I first joined the channel.
Yeah, it was bad. It was so bad. You never heard of a 20 quid note?
He means the £20 note.
It's this was in the report. I'm not kidding. This was actually in the what they put on. Oh God, what was the shit? There was. I'll have to look it up and see if I can't link it. It was one of the talk shows in England. They were interviewing the girl and her sister. Well, Jamie, how old are you? He's as old as your youngest, right, Joel?
No.
No?
No.
No.
He's just, for I'm mistaken, he's 26. Just turned 26 this year.
So yeah,
So
one of the things that I've
year.
One of the things I've noticed is that the vernacular for English slang is over the last 20 years has had a complete change.
Excuse me, 28.
Yeah, so when I was a kid and we went to England and all of my family and relations that came over, their vernacular, the way that they spoke is completely different from what you guys speak now. It's all a matter of fashion. So their own fog machines. Yeah, we don't, Sephora, because
We should.
That we should though, because then that'll be so cool. That'll make
Theme
people
music
do
and
it.
everything.
Diana was saying it was nothing like Hollywood. I don't mean anticlimactic, like I couldn't feel the change. And then I said, we don't show up with our own fog machines and CGI.
See, but that's what we really need, because then the show is really it's definitely worth it's definitely worth watching. But no, that's why they do what they do on in Hollywood. Otherwise, it would be so boring to watch what we're doing, because all you see is it would be like for Diane Swiger and myself in our homes, with our sitting in a chair with it thrown backwards, and we're just focusing, and yet our other selves are there in Diana's house, and we're doing stuff. And that's where the interesting thing is. But unless you were experienced, you can't really follow along and see what was happening.
Yeah, you would just see me with some headphones on, sitting in front of a candle in a dark room with my eyes closed.
Yeah, and that's
all
really
you would see.
That's really not all that interesting to watch.
Yeah, maybe with some chimes and a smudge fan.
Exactly. So it's so, but all the stuff that's going on is going on out there in the astral, or but it would take a gifted person to see it, and so Hollywood has to put on the extra flares, or else people will just be walking away. They're just not going to want to watch any of it.
Yawn.
It's just a snooze fest.
It's like a European documentary or something with subtitles.
All right. Okay, everybody. So we're going to wrap this up. Thank you all for coming. Next week, we're going to do another one. Oh, geez. What was it going to be on? Somebody gave me a great idea, and I said we're going to go with that. But for Segue Sunday next week, I don't know who's going to be here, but it's definitely going to be me. And Joel, I don't think you have next Sunday off.
No, I don't. I have Saturday off, so maybe we could do something Saturday.
I got to work Saturday, so I'll be not home at the time.
Okay.
Unfortunately. But remember, everybody, if you have questions, to post them to iansmagicoak@gmail.com, or look for Magic Oak Paranormal on Facebook. The links are out on the pages, and you can come to us and ask us questions if you need advice, etc. And remember to be good to each other. And until next time we meet, stay blessed. Goodbye, everybody.